Welcome back to Outside the Book. This is David Lee, and our guest now is Courtney Stevens. She grew up in Kentucky. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee. She's a college teacher, a youth minister, a tree climber, an Olympic torchbearer. She's a pretty fair softball player who holds the Lindsey Wilson college record for hits in a career, and she's a pretty fair writer as well. Faking Normal is her first novel.
Yes, absolutely. That was quite an introduction.
Well, thanks for being with us on Outside the Book.
Thank you for having me.
Where did this story come from for you?
Oh, that is such a great question. I used to write fantasy, and I paid for a critique in Los Angeles, and the editor read the critique I had on fantasy, and she kind of looked at me when we were sitting down and talking, and she said, you know, this is good, but I don't think it's the book you have to write. And I want to know the book only you can write. And I was like, wow, what is the book only I could write? And so I kind of went back to my thinking place, and I asked myself, if adult me could go back and talk to teenage me for one moment in time, where would I be and what would I say to myself? And the book came from that.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I'm intrigued by the title, partly because I start writing my own book when I hear the title, but the title is Faking Normal.
Yes, Faking Normal.
Where did the title come from?
Well, that's exciting because the original title of Faking Normal was 23 because of something that happened in the novel. And my agent and I went kind of back and forth on, like, what's the thing that really, really not just sells this book, but speaks to an audience. And as soon as Faking Normal kind of arrived on our list, we're like, that's it. That's it, because so many people, we find, it's the story of their life. You know, like people ask you, have you had a good day? And you immediately say, okay, it's fine. You know, and like, but you might not have had a good day. You might have had a terrible day. And so to some degree, because we all do that, there's a universal feature to it. And so hopefully it would attract people to it. But for my main character, it's her life. You know, she has a secret, and she feels a lot of shame because of that, but she doesn't want anyone to pity her. And so she thinks the best course of action is to keep that in and to just get up every day and act like everything is totally normal, you know?
Let me ask you a practical question.
Sure.
How did you find the time to write this book?
Wow. So I was a youth minister, and I'm also a college professor. And here's the thing. I don't think that you find time, you make time. The things that you love and the things that you have to do, you just say, I'm going to do this. And so I decided, because I wanted to write a novel, I would treat it like a part-time job that no one ever paid me for. And so it took 15 hours of my week, and I set them aside to write. And I'm like, someday maybe somebody will pay me for this, but until then, I'm going to do it no matter what. And it took me, I started writing seriously, like it was a part-time job, in 2007, and the book came out in 2014. So 7 years of unpaid work to get to paid work. So yeah.
So do you consider yourself a writer of young adult fiction, or does it just happen that that's where your stories fall?
I like to say that you need to be 13 to read this book. You don't have to be anything else. Like it's 13 and up. It's kind of like, you ever see a board game, you know, and you just have to be a certain age to start there? Mm-hmm. I think that's what this book is. I don't think you have to be a teenager to understand this girl or her story or what's going on in her life. I think a wide variety of ages. I've talked to a 92-year-old, a 93-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 50-year-old that have all said, I found myself here. And so I like to think that it does give teenagers a certain degree of hope because it's their setting, but that it fits everyone, you know?
How do you find an audience for your work? And I ask that partly because I came across a quote from you that part of what goes on is kind of marketing your personality. Talk a little bit about what you mean by that.
Well, here's the thing. This book is not for everyone, and I know it. But some of the mantras in it are life mantras for me. Like, one of them is channel your brave. And I've met a lot of people that don't necessarily need to read that book, but I've never met someone that doesn't deal with fear on some level. And I'm like, if I can get that message to people, that channel your brave message, it outlives this book. I'm going to write another book, and hopefully another book after that, another book after that. I think the thing that holds those books together is me. And so I kind of like to think of it as playing the long game. I do a lot better, not just to sell this book, but to try and sell someone on, I'm a person that's willing to invest in them, wherever they are in their journey, and that maybe one of those books will hit on them, you know? It seems smarter to me than to do that than to just try and sell one book.
Courtney Stevens, Faking Normal sounds like a great place to start, and I hope you do have many more books down the road.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's been wonderful to have you here on Outside the Book.
Thank you for having me.
I'm David Lee here at the Southern Kentucky Festival of Books. Thanks for joining us here on Outside the Book.